Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. It was a busy weekend as President Trump announced tariffs against China, Canada, and Mexico. Last night, as he was returning to Washington, he spoke with the media at Joint Base Andrews and explained what's next. We have that update for you. The Democrat Party gathered over the weekend as well to elect new leaders, and boy, it got very bizarre. Folks, they still don't realize why the American people totally rejected their nonsense in November. Stick around because you're going to want to hear what happened as the outgoing DNC Chairman, Jaime Harrison, explained how they have to elect an equal number of male, female, and non-binary candidates for their leadership. Also, New York Democrats are working to keep Representative Elise Stefanik's House seat vacant for months in their latest scheme against President Donald Trump. On the immigration front, we expect to see ICE and other federal agencies arrest more illegals this week. Border Czar Tom Homan over the weekend appeared on a number of the talk shows and confirmed his operation is just getting started. Good news, too, Venezuela has agreed to accept illegal immigrants from the U.S. and pay for their return transportation costs, according to President Donald Trump, who made the announcement on Saturday. We have an update on the recovery operation going on at Reagan National Airport after last week's tragic collision of an American Airlines passenger jet and the Army Black Hawk helicopter. And finally, it is official. Punxsutawney Phil emerged from his tree trunk on Groundhog Day yesterday. We have his prediction. It's Monday, and boy, there's a lot to cover.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
President Donald Trump defended his recent executive order imposing tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China while speaking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews last night. The tariffs are set to take effect tomorrow under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and will impose a 25% levy on imports from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tariff on Chinese imports. During his remarks, Trump criticized Canada, accusing the country of unfair trade practices against the U.S. He claimed that Canada has been very abusive towards American businesses, particularly restricting U.S. banks from operating within its borders. He also said that Canada has blocked American energy and agricultural products while benefiting from open access to U.S. market. Here's President Donald Trump last night at Joint Base Andrews.
Well, it could happen if they do anything, we will. Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada, and something's going to happen there. But if they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want. Mexico, we've had very good talks with them, and this is retaliatory. This is retaliatory to a certain extent. Millions of people flowed into our country through Mexico and Canada, and we're not going to allow that. And by the way, we have among the lowest numbers we've ever had of people crossing our border, the lowest numbers since my administration.
Trump went on to say that the U.S. effectively subsidizes Canada to the tune of about $200 billion a year, as you heard, arguing that America gains little in return from the current trade relationship. While expressing admiration for the Canadian people, He criticized the country's leadership. And this is what Trump has been saying for months now. The tariffs mark another move in Trump's longstanding stance on trade, which is focused on reducing U.S. trade deficit and pressuring foreign governments to adopt policies that are more favorable to American industries. Canada and Mexico immediately vowed retaliatory measures after Trump's announcement on Saturday. China said that it would challenge Trump's 10% tariffs at the World Trade Organization and take unspecified countermeasures. Critics said that the moves against the three largest U.S. trading partners of the U.S. will hurt Americans by driving prices higher and slowing global growth. President Trump defended his decision on social media. He wrote, "The USA has major deficits with Canada, Mexico, and China, and almost all countries. Owes $36 trillion, and we're not going to be the stupid country any longer." Writing in capital letters, Trump added, "This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not." The Trump tariffs outlined in 3 executive orders are due to take effect at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow morning, Tuesday. Trump vowed to keep them in place until what he described as a national emergency over fentanyl, a deadly opioid, and illegal immigration to the United States end. Now, China did leave the door open to continue talking with the U.S. Its sharpest pushback seems to be over fentanyl. In a statement, China's foreign minister said, "Fentanyl is America's problem," claiming that China has nothing to do with the extensive fentanyl abuse that we're seeing in the U.S. Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, yesterday signaled hope for an agreement. She appeared on ABC's This Week. She said, "We're hopeful that they don't come into effect on Tuesday," indicating that they were talking behind the scenes and that hopefully there was a diplomatic solution. Hillman said that Canadian officials are ready to keep talking to the U.S., but that Canadians expect that their government stands up for itself. Trump has sounded particularly dismissive towards Canada, with calls for the country to become the 51st state, saying that it ceases to exist as a viable country without our massive subsidy. So maybe this is what it's all about. This is going to put some further pressure on Canada particularly, and maybe it's with the idea that eventually they do join forces, that they do become the 51st state. What do you think about Canada being our 51st state? Are you willing to experience a little pain, as the president indicated there's likely to be? And look, I'm not an expert when it comes to the economy. I don't completely understand the whole idea of a trade war. I mean, it kind of, to me, if I know that we're going to be charging a company 25% more on its product coming into our country, who's going to pay for that? Well, whoever ends up buying the product, because the company's not going to absorb it. So it's a little bit scary, particularly in our situation where we got to get inflation under control. So my first thought is this going to work? Are we not just guaranteeing that products that we import from Canada, from Mexico, and from China, that they're going to go up, which there's a lot of product there. But I also trust that Trump knows what he's doing. We saw it in his first administration. So I'm willing to give him a chance. I mean, that's why I voted for him. What about you? Yes, it may be a little painful initially. And look, I'm just going to start looking for ideally, I would hope that U.S. manufacturers ramp things up and they start making more products here, so we don't even have to import from Canada, from Mexico, and from China. But think about all the products we get from China. I mean, about everything you pick up, it has a Made in China label on it. That one's going to be tough. Moving on to the immigration issue, there was news out of Venezuela over the weekend, and it's a major win for President Trump, as we learned that they're going to accept the deportation, and guess what? They've agreed to pay for the transportation to return the illegals from the U.S., from Venezuela. For years and years, we've had waves of illegal immigrants flooding across the border. Thousands from Venezuela, many of whom are tied to violent gangs like the Tren de Arga, a notorious criminal organization. By the way, you remember the video that went viral a few weeks back of this group of thugs who had taken over an apartment building in Colorado? Well, they picked him up in New York. They arrested him in New York over the weekend. He's on his way back to Venezuela. That's where he's from. I mean, under Joe Biden, these criminals were allowed to stay because Venezuela refused to take them back. So we just said, okay, you can stay. Or that's what Joe Biden did. I mean, we knew who he was because there was a vivid video of him, and we didn't go after him. Somehow he got from Colorado to New York City. New York City was his last stop, though. Oh, well, actually, his last stop is going to be back home. This is what Trump is doing. Venezuela agreed to accept all deported illegals back into their country, including the criminals, and they're going to pay for the fare. That's the way Trump does things. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. There's a lot of talk about making America great again, and it begins with making America healthy again. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss are at the forefront to educate and guide you to be your best self. The millions being spent in propping up Big Pharma are astounding, only to create long-term dependency and harmful side effects. Let's take a natural approach that isn't connected to a pharmaceutical company's bottom line. The coaches at PhD Weight Loss will show you how. The entire program is centered around science and nutrition, a proven roadmap that has helped over 8,000 clients lose over 331,000 pounds. You'll learn what to eat and when, how to quiet cravings, and finally get rid of that belly fat. Plus, you'll never take a medication. How many pounds would you like to lose in 2025? Do it the natural way with PhD Weight Loss, here to lead the charge to make America healthy again. Call PhD Weight Loss and schedule your consultation. 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Did you, like me, kind of sense over the weekend that the news on the horrific crash in Washington last week was already kind of fading over the weekend? There were a couple of times that I wanted to find some updates, and I literally had to search for them. It's like they're not the headlines anymore. We have moved on. Officials say that they have recovered the bodies of 55 of the 67 victims that were killed after the Army helicopter and American Airlines passenger plane collided at a very low altitude. And that altitude is what is being debated right now, just as the American Airlines flight was about to land at Reagan National last week. D.C. Fire Chief John Donnelly said it in a Sunday afternoon briefing. It's my belief that we're going to recover everyone. They still believe that they're going to be able to find all 67 souls who perished that last Wednesday night. Divers are still searching the very cold Potomac River for the remains of 12 people. They say that the waterway remains closed to unauthorized vessels. It's tough. It's dark, murky, cold water. All 64 people, of course, aboard the American Airlines Flight 5342, which, by the way, you probably heard American Airlines, they have retired the use of that Flight 5342. That flight will never be used with American Airlines again, that number. And, of course, all three of the Black Hawk helicopter, those soldiers, all three were killed as well. Their identities were announced over the weekend. There had been speculation that there were two males and one female on that helicopter. And there was speculation online that the female was a trans. That was proven not to be the case. The young lady who was on there, her family had not wanted her ID to be released initially. I don't know for what reason. That allowed for a lot of speculation on why the Army was withholding it. And there had been a lot of rumors, a lot of stuff on social media that the reason they were withholding it was because it was a trans. a transgender person. That's not the case. The process of lifting the wreckage out of the river, we're told, will start later this morning. Army Corps of Engineers Colonel Francis Pera said that our goal is to really lift as much as we can, given the fact that we're also accounting for the human remains component, meaning that there still remains in the airplane. Meanwhile, the National Transportation Board is leading the investigation in what caused the crash. NTSB had a couple of briefings over the weekend. They talked about Saturday, the inbound flight from Wichita approaching Reagan National at about 325 feet in the air, give or take 25 feet. That seems to be their margin of error. They believe it was at 325 at the point of impact. Now, early information suggests that the Army helicopter was flying above the 200 feet where it was supposed to be, the maximum allowed altitude for that path. There's some conflict over that, though. The helicopter was on a training mission. Investigators are working to confirm whether the crew had on their night vision while flying in what was a clear night, but of course very dark, but a lot of lights in the area because you're close to the airport and you've got the reflection off of the water. The collision has renewed concerns about that area's level of safety. That's a very tough approach. J. Todd Inman is a member of the NTSB and is leading the investigation. He cited the experience of the team that is going to be leading the investigation.
The team that is working on this crash at DCA collectively has over 350 years of seniority with the NTSB. We will find out what happened, and we will do everything we can to prevent it. But I don't want anyone to think, because we are working two accidents, this is what we do. Week in and week out. Just today, a lot more people are paying attention to it.
The air safety investigator said on Saturday that they're still working to fill in some of the key details that could point to the cause of the crash. They're looking into whether the pilots from the Army's Black Hawk helicopter could have experienced some type of vision impairment. The Black Hawk may have been flying higher than it should have been. Again, a lot of unknowns there. But investigators have stopped short of confirming some of the multimedia reports that basically said that the flight data that the helicopter breached aviation rules that require helicopters on that route to stay below 200 feet.
So the question again, and I'm going to try to say this one more time, the CRJ at the time of impact, based on ADSB data and the voice and the data and the flight recorder, shows that airplane was positioned at 325 feet plus or minus 25 feet. On the radar scope in the cab, our preliminary review shows that the Black Hawk helicopter would have visualized at 200 feet. It's not as defined. That is preliminary. We will get more significant information. We wanted to present the 325 plus or minus because we knew that. We have good certainty with it, but without presenting it with the radar scope information or with presenting that, it could cause some conflict. So I'm going to be very careful to make sure we still have a lot more work to do. These are one of thousands of data points and will be hundreds of thousands of pages. We're trying to release the information as we know it and make sure we're giving the best information that's accurate and learning from it.
At times, Mr. Inman got emotional about it. He stressed that it's his agency's job to analyze the data and to use it to make air travel safer. He described meeting with the families earlier on Saturday and how he doesn't want to have to meet with families again.
Well, the question is about spending time with the members' families. I spent several hours with them today. There's more, there's some new, there's some that have been there for 3 days. There's some that want to give us hugs. There's some that are just mad and angry. They're just all hurt, and they still want answers, and we want to give them answers. And the most devastating thing, I guess, today was they watched the news last night. They know their loved ones were recovered. They're thinking, is it going to take longer? Am I not going to find my loved one? How will this affect it? That's hard. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. And no one should suffer this. So yeah, it is hard on them. They have a lot of questions. They haven't been through this.
And he's right. I can imagine what these families are going through right now. Yes, they do have a lot of questions. They haven't been through this. No one should have to go through this, and I applaud what the NTSB is doing to hopefully get the answer so this particular mistake isn't made again. There was some breaking news, political insanity, you might say, and the left's latest attempt to manipulate democracy right in front of our eyes over the weekend. And you're going to think that I'm making this up. Now, if you needed another example of just how far left and how far off the rails today's Democrat Party has gone, look no further than the Democrat National Committee's latest leadership vote. Now, I want you to picture this. You got it in your mind here, okay? Instead of a straightforward election, first off, they broke in the song. They started singing as they nominated their leaders, but it didn't stop there. They also had gender rule mandates ensuring that co-chairs must represent different genders because apparently today's woke radicals, the qualifications and competence come second to identity politics. They haven't learned a thing, folks. Here's outgoing DNC Chairman Jaime Harrison from South Carolina explaining the quota system for their leadership positions.
The rules specify that when we have a gender non-binary candidate or officer, the non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. So again, this is what we have to do for this vice chair race. We have to elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. To ensure our process accounts for male, female, and non-binary candidates, we conferred with our RBC co-chair, our LGBT caucus co-chair, and others to ensure that the process is inclusive and meets the gender balance requirements in our rules. To do this, our process will be slightly different than the one outlined to you earlier this week, but I hope you will see that in practice it is simple and transparent. The order of balloting is designed to ensure equal access to the ballot regardless of gender identity. As we must elect a candidate of any gender as well as 1 male and 1 female vice chair, we will first ask members to elect a candidate of any gender on the first ballot. Any candidate, male, female, and non-binary, can be elected on that ballot. After a candidate is elected on the first ballot, we'll have 1 officer of the 3, so then we will know which position is filled of the 1 male, 1 female, and 1 vice chair of any gender. Our second ballot would also be for a candidate of any gender. Then our third ballot will be the third position that is remaining based on the 2 results. Either a male candidate if a candidate that is not male has not been elected, or a female candidate if a female has not been elected.
Did you get that? Did you follow it? And I promise, that is directly from their meeting. I didn't doctor that. I didn't change that at all. That's Jaime Harrison explaining how they have to have different people of different sexes for these positions. So in other words, if you were running for, let's say, vice chair, and you're a male, and a male had already been elected to a position, then you can't run because they need a female or a binary, a non-binary, or whatever it is they call them. I mean, this is beyond parody, folks. The Washington Free Beacon first reported on this clown show where members of the DNC, they literally held hands and sang their nominations. You can't make it up, I promise you. And listen to this. When the DNC leaders were challenged on this nonsense, they doubled down, saying that it's about inclusion and it's about fairness. Now, let me ask you something. Is this a serious political party? Or is this more like a Broadway musical? A bad Broadway musical. Meanwhile, Americans are struggling under the the effects of what we've been through these past 4 years with Joe Biden, crime surging in Democrat-run cities, our border is having to be closed down. We're spending a lot of money. Donald Trump, that was his first priority, and he's doing it, but still a lot of work to be done. And they're singing songs and talking about gender quotas. I don't know whether to laugh about this or be outraged. I guess I have to laugh because I really don't care. To be outraged, I would have to care about it, and I don't. If they're this stupid still, if they're so stupid that they're going to not elect the best people that they have for their party to lead them forward, if they're going to have to divide these duties up and make sure that everybody from each gender are equally represented, whether they're qualified or not, then they deserve to continue to lose. Democrats are more interested in progressive virtue signaling than actually fixing the country, and good for them. I'm glad. That just means that this is the group that they elected this past weekend. They're the clowns that are going to be running the campaigns in the midterm elections, and I'm happy about that because the American people are watching, and they're sick and tired of this circus act. And let's be honest, this isn't some isolated incident. This is the natural extension of the woke ideology that has taken over the Democrat Party, and they didn't learn from getting just totally defeated in November. They didn't learn a thing from that. They're obsessed with quotas. They're obsessed with identity politics, symbolism over substance. And they want to control how we think. They want to control what we say, our speech, and even how we vote. And instead of focusing on lowering taxes, improving schools, or fixing our crumbling infrastructure and securing our border, they're too busy making sure their leadership looks diverse enough on paper. Never mind the actual ability or experience or effectiveness of these people they elected. And I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what this is really about. The radical left is using these gender quotas and performance gestures and to distract from their disastrous policies. They want you talking about their ridiculous song and dance routines instead of the skyrocketing crime, the fentanyl flooding onto our streets because Joe Biden allowed millions of illegals to come into our country. And now Donald Trump's having to clean this mess up. They know their policies are failing, so they're putting on a show to keep their radical base entertained. But let me tell you, America sees through it. They didn't buy it November 5th. They're not going to buy it next year in the midterm elections either. And by the way, if you want to know more about what the Democrat Party is about, just look at some of their new leadership. You remember David Hogg, the well-known gun control activist and survivor of the 2018 Parkland school shooting? Now, this young man, and I never want to make light of the fact that he survived that horrible tragedy at Parkland. Hogg was elected the vice chair of the Democrat National Committee. Now, you look at some of his past political statements, including calls to abolish ICE, defund the police. Even some within the Democrat Party are scratching their head over that one on how he's going to be out there and out front. He's 24 years old now. He's been vocal on a range of progressive issues. In 2020, he posted on social media, defund the police, not USPS, and separately wrote, abolish ICE. He's also advocated for stricter gun controls, and in 2021 called for the National Rifle Association to be designated a terrorist organization, claiming that its supporters played a role in the January 6th Capitol riot. Now, this young man, again, what he experienced, he should not have had to as a student at this high school. He should not have seen that happen. But he has taken that. He liked the attention that he got. He's a very well-spoken young man. He can give a speech. He can passionately get people riled up and ready to go, ready to take action. But he is so far left and so progressive, he's going to be the new face of the Democrat Party. I'm not sure they really understood what they were doing. I guess maybe when they got to the vice chair position, they had already had a female and a non-binary, so that they needed a male, and he happened to be the male that came forward. Upon his election, Hogg expressed gratitude and vowed to reshape the Democrat Party into one that is authentic, relatable, earns people's trust, and wins again, he said. Well, you're not going to win with all that woke stuff that you're pushing, Mr. Hogg. In his victory speech, he pledged to fight, to aggressively challenge President Donald Trump and Republicans, accusing us of gutting his rights, attacking workers, and rigging the system of the wealthy. He's the new face of the DNC, whether they want him to be or not. He's not going to sit back. He may only be vice chair, but he's not going to sit back and not be heard. And boy, this is going to get very interesting fast. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. The crowd started piling into Gobbler's Knob at 3 a.m. yesterday morning. Happy to wait 4 hours. It's kind of like waiting for a Trump rally. In freezing cold to see the celebrity groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, waiting for him to emerge from his tree trunk on Groundhog Day. Phil, 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 they were chanting. See, again, kind of like Trump, Trump, Trump. So at 7:25 a.m. yesterday, with sunrise hitting the hillside, members of the inner circle, the top-hatted leaders of the Groundhog Club, huddled around the tree trunk, standing in the middle of the wide stage. Inner Circle President Tom Dunkel, using a wooden cane to rap on Phil's door, the groundhog was brought out and held up to the sky, setting off a frenzy of cheers, and Phil saw his shadow, predicting winter weather is going to stick around for 6 more weeks like the piles of snow. Should we plan for more cold weather? Should we go out and buy another overcoat? Well, I wouldn't get too quick on that, because in recent years, Punxsutawney Phil's predictions have been wrong 70% of the time. He's not very good at weather prediction. This is according to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA spokesperson. According to NOAA, which is, they have a page dedicated to Punxsutawney Phil's predictions, have only been right 30% over the past 10 years. In 2016, 2020, 2024, he was right. He didn't see his shadow each time predicting an early spring, but the other years, not so reliable. So I'll leave it up to you whether or not you expect more cold weather or sunshine coming in soon. Tech billionaire Elon Musk ripped alleged, quote, fraudulent Treasury payments on Saturday as reports circulated that the Department of Government Efficiency has gained access to the federal government's payment system as the second Trump administration continues cutting what they say is government fat and overspending, and there may even just be some fraud in there. We'll see. Musk, of course, chairman of Doge, posted early Saturday morning to X saying the @Doge team discovered, among other things, that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed always to approve payments, even to non-fraudulent or terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once, Musk posted. Musk's post came just ahead of the New York Times reporting Saturday afternoon that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent granted Doge personnel access to the payment system. The Treasury spends nearly $6 trillion per year on payments for federal agencies. The ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, posted to social media on Saturday that he has also been informed that Doge was granted access to the system, and they don't like it. The Democrats don't like it at all. Wyden posted to social media to Blue Sky Saturday saying, sources tell my office that Treasury Secretary Bessent has granted Doge full access, and he had quote marks around full, to this system. Social Security and Medicare benefits, grants, payments to government contractors, including those that compete directly with Musk's own companies, all of it, Wyden said. You notice how they love to throw in Social Security and Medicare as if Elon Musk is going to do something that would prevent someone's Social Security from being paid or for Medicare benefits not to be paid. They like to throw in that fear factor so that people will overreact. Doge's reported access to the payment system, of course, comes after the Washington Post reported on Friday that the former acting director of the Treasury, David LeBrike, was planning to exit the finance department of the federal government following a clash over granting Doge access to its payment system. LeBrike oversaw the Treasury Department in its days between President Trump's inauguration on January 20th and Bessent's confirmation to lead the department on January 27th. He reportedly is a Trump supporter, but doesn't like the idea that someone like Elon Musk, an outsider, someone who's not a government employee, would have access to this information. On Friday, reports also spread that civil servants within the Office of Personnel Management, which works as the federal government's HR department were reportedly locked from the office's computer systems by Doge. Musk quipped on X Saturday saying that working over the weekend is a, quote, superpower where the opposing team disappears for 2 days. So he sneaked in on the weekend. That's what they don't like. Elon Musk has been working all weekend, snooping around the federal government and their payment system, trying to see where this money is going. He posted, very few in the bureaucracy actually work the weekend. So it's like the opposing team just leaves the field for 2 days. Working the weekend is a superpower. Look, I'm happy for him. Do you mind that if Elon Musk has access to the federal government's payment system? Do you care if he works on weekends? I don't. Trump officially created Doge via an executive order on his first day in office. The executive order outlines that government agency chiefs provide Doge with access to internal government platforms like software systems and IT systems. And look, you're not going to pull something over on Elon Musk. He's going to know if you give it him full access or not. Musk said during their conversation, a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. This is in relationship to cutting federal spending. And Elon Musk and Trump 2.0, this is the first time in recent years that they've actually talked about cutting spending. The answer up until now is just spend more. So Musk said inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply. If the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services, that's inflation. It's a very basic principle. Since its official creation last month, Doge's X account, and they have their own X account. If you're on X, you should follow it, because they post some good stuff. They provided updates on their work to cut government spending, including announcing last week that it's cut more than $1 billion from federal spending through the now defunct diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and personnel. And those are the ones that they've identified. There's probably more to come. There's some that I'm sure are still hiding within the bureaucratic red tape. But I got a feeling Elon Musk is going to sniff them out. You know, Trump and Musk has always thought about the idea of the creation of Doge, and they talked about this during the campaign. that this team would weed out overspending, it would weed out fraud within the federal government. And this is why some of the career bureaucrats don't like the idea of someone like Elon Musk looking over their shoulder, because they know that Elon Musk, owning businesses himself, being a very successful business person, he can sniff out fraud like nobody else can. He can tell you real quick if an agency is spending too much money on office supplies, on personnel, on anything. It's kind of like having an auditor doing a major audit on the entire spending program of the federal government, and hey, it's about time. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.